So here I am at the Mortuary Temple of Hatsepshut. It is also known as the Djeser Djeseru, a mortuary temple of ancient Egypt located here in Upper Egypt, built for the 18th dynasty pharaoh Hatsepshut, who died in 1485 BC. The temple is located beneath the cliffs at Deir el-Bahari, on the west bank of the Nile near the Valley of the Kings, where I just went. This mortuary temple is dedicated to Amun and Hatsepshut and is situated next to the mortuary temple of Mentuhotep II. The excavations began in 1891 and the surrounding area is still being excavated. Hatsepshut, his chancellor, the royal architects of Senenmut, oversaw the construction of the temple. It was used as a model and had significant influence over many other monuments in Egypt. This place was mentioned by travelers already in the first half of the 18th century. At first, only the Coptic century was recorded in 1737. Almost 100 years later, researchers accepted the name Deir el-Bahari, introduced by John Gardner Wilkinson. The first excavations in the temple were carried out by Auguste Mariette, the founder of the Egyptian Antiques Service. Further work was conducted by a British expedition organized by the Egypt Exploration Fund, directed by Edouard Naville, an American person from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So this is the temple. The main and axis of the temple is set to an azimuth of about 116.5 degrees. It is aligned to the winter solstice sunrise, which in our modern era occurs around 21 or 22nd of December each year. Sunlight penetrates through the rear wall of the chapel before moving to the right to highlight one of the Osiris statues that stand on either side of the doorway to the second chamber. Further detail to show this main alignment is created by a light box which shows a block of sunlight that slowly moves from the central axis of the temple to first illuminate the god of Amun-Ra, then shining on the kneeling figure of Thutmose I, before finally illuminating the Nile god Hapi. Additionally, because of the height and angle of the sun, around 41 days on either side of the solstice, sunlight is able to penetrate via the secondary light box through the innermost chamber. This innermost chapel was renewed and expanded in the Ptolemaic era and has cult references to the Imhotep, the builder of the Pyramid of Djoser, the Amenhotep, son of the Hapu, the overseer of the works of Amenhotep III. The solstical alignment could be related to the fusion of the Egyptian constellation of the Ram with the sun, originating Amun-Ra, heavenly father of Hatshepsut. 9 months later, at the autumn equinox, the beautiful feast of Opet would mark the pharaohic birth. As for the alignment of the 1st of February, it would be a marker of the date on which Amun-Ra pronounced the oracle that enthroned Hatshepsut as a female pharaoh. It is considered the closest of Egypt, or the closest what Egypt came to classical architecture. Representative of the new kingdom of funerary architecture, it both aggrandizes the pharaoh and includes sanctuaries to honor the gods relevant to the afterlife. This marks a turning point in the architecture of ancient Egypt, which forsook the megalithic geometry of the Old Kingdom for a temple which allowed for active worship, requiring the presence of participants to create the majesty. The linear axiality of Hatshepsut temple is mirrored in the later New Kingdom temples. The architecture of the original temple has been considerably altered as a result of misguided reconstruction in the early 20th century AD. Stunning place to be. So there's been a lot of altering to this place during the excavations. I guess they were not, would they be done today, it would have probably been different. But that's just these things, excavation techniques, they also evolve when the time continues. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that a big part has not yet been excavated, because it can only mean the rest can be dug up without doing any damage. Look at this Egypt Exploration Fund. This is the Medinet Habu, the Temple of Habu. It is the temple of the Ramses, or the Ramesses III, and an important structure of the New Kingdom period here on the west bank of Luxor in Egypt. Aside from its size and architectural and artistic importance, the Mortuary Temple is probably the best known as a source of inscribed reliefs depicting the advent and defeat of the Sea peoples during the reign of the Ramesses III. Look at the detail and just the weathered stone. How this has lasted thousands of years. This is probably the most impressive one I've seen here. The first excavations of the temple took place sporadically between 1859 and 1899 under the Department of Antiquities. During these decades, the main temple was cleared. A large number of the Greco-Roman period buildings, including a substantial Byzantine church and the second court, were destroyed without notes or records being taken. The further excavation recording and conservation of the temple has been facilitated in the chief part by the architectural and epigraphic surveys of the University of Chicago Oriental Institute. The temple, some 150 meters long, is of Orthodox design and closely resembles a nearby mortuary of the Ramesses II, the Ramesseum. The temple precinct measures approximately 210 meters by 300 meters and contains more than 7,000 square meters of decorated wall reliefs. Its walls are relatively well preserved and is surrounded by a massive mud brick enclosure which may have been fortified. The original entrance is through a fortified gatehouse known as Migdol, a common architectural feature of Asiatic fortresses of the time. Just inside the enclosure, to the south, are chapels of Amenirdes I, Shepenupet II, and Nitikret, all of whom had the title of Divine Adductorate of Amun. The first pylon leads to an open courtyard, lined with colossal structures, statues of the Ramesses I. There are uncarved columns on the other. The second pylon leads into a peristyle hall, again featuring columns in the shape of the Ramesses. The third pylon is reached by continuing up a ramp that leads through a columned portico and then opens into a large hypostyle hall, which has lost its roof. Reliefs and actual heads of foreign captives were also found placed within the temple, perhaps in an attempt to symbolize the king's control over Syria and Nubia. In the Greco-Roman and Byzantine period, there was a church inside the temple structure, which has since been removed. Some of the carvings in the main wall of the temple have been altered by Christian carvings. The royal palace was directly connected with the first courtyard of the temple via the windows of appearances. The Medinet Habu King List is a procession celebrating the festival of Min with the names of 9 pharaohs. It can be found on the upper register of the eastern wall in the second courtyard. Wow, this is absolutely incredible. I've never seen anything like this. I think this temple is the most incredible place I've ever seen. I have few things that have made me silent, but today I had several of these places, and this temple, I don't know why exactly this one, probably because of the reliefs in the walls everywhere have made this, and then just the size of the thing has made this probably the most incredible place I've ever seen. If you look at this, there is absolutely nothing like this in the whole world, the whole wide world. Look at these walls. And this is intact. Wow.